Yeah, I'm gonna call the meeting to order now that we got our technical stuff in order. Let's do a roll call.
Pip Marquez de la Plata,
Here.
Vicky Clues,
Here.
Harry Gwydowski. Here. Joe Roga,
Here.
Spencer Scott,
Here.
Betsy Van Dyke. Here. Patty Thayer. Here. Lonnie Lazard,
Here.
Ty Hilton,
Here.
and Faye Zamora is absent.
All right, we move to item 2, which is approval.
Can we have the announcement from the interpreter?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Buenas noches y bienvenidos a nuestra reunión e interpretación de español disponible para los participantes. Si están en Zoom, por favor, hagan clic en el icono del globo terráqueo en la barra inferior de Zoom para elegir el idioma de su preferencia. Si gustan escuchar una interpretación más clara, pueden desactivar el idioma original de igual manera. Si están presentes en la sala, por favor, diríjanse al Tribunal del Quinto Distrito para que les den auriculares de interpretación. Gracias.
Thank you. All right, now we'll go to item 2, approval of the agenda. Didn't want to make a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Second.
Was
All-
that Lonnie?
Yeah. All in favor, raise your hand. That's everybody. Okay, if anyone has a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda, now is the time to bring it up. Anybody? No? Okay, item 4, consent agenda, which consists of our meeting minutes from May 8th. Does anyone have any comments on them or move to approve them?
I'll move.
Anyone? Second. Raise your hands. Aye.
I'm abstaining. Okay.
Okay.
I'm abstaining.
Okay. So all but Lonnie and Vicky were abstaining.
Got it.
Item 5, this is the time for anyone on the council, if you have an announcement to make, this is the time to do it as long as it's not on the agenda. We do ask you to make it brief. Anybody? Anybody? No, I guess I have one thing. I think it was about 3 weeks ago, we officially did our ribbon cutting of the Rio Negro Community Center, which we're calling the station, which was a enormous time suck over the last years to get going. So we had a great attendance, and it's really great to have another building out in the Lower Russian River. It can be used for community things, meetings. We're gonna start some kids classes out there. Our post office is getting ready to have mail be brought to that community that has not had mail for 8 years now. So I'm extremely happy that that's happened.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is it too late for people who live in Rio Negro to get a post office box there?
No,
I spoke with someone, they thought they'd seen something and they weren't sure if it was too late.
no, it's not too late.
Good.
Not too late. And I'm sure when we officially open the boxes themselves, there's still gonna be time afterwards to do that. The best way to be informed about that is to sign up for the Friends of Rio Negro group, and you'll get all the communication that way.
Are they gonna move the PO boxes from this office here back? Or
No.
are they bringing new
That
ones
would
in?
be too efficient.
If you put their old PO boxes back.
to reinvent the wheel somehow, right?
No, we, the boxes and the physical boxes are not getting moved. We had to buy
You
new
need new
ones.
ones.
And we will not have PO box as our address anymore. It will be our street address, but we are taking the Kernville zip code. So there was a trade-off that we had to.
So is this a contract office, not an official PO,
It's a CPU,
which is a contract?
so yeah. So that's pretty exciting. Anyone else have anything? No? Now's the time, if anyone in the audience, either live here, of course that's that. Let's go Buster, go ahead. In 2 minutes, there's a timer and it's gonna be buzz.
What, I have a reputation? I wanted to bring up something about, because I'm doing a Firewise community in my neighborhood. I attend a lot of these workshops, on fire safe, everything. And recently I attended one on Measure H. Measure H fundings are for roadside clearance and, shaded fuel breaks, vegetation management. And I was completely unclear on how to, get a project into the system. There's a portal that official has to enter it into. There are projects that require secret review. And it's kind of complicated. And so a lot of us are trying to make movement on this on basically one-way streets in and out of neighborhoods, crowded, too tight with the vegetation, so there's no place to pull vehicles over, and evacuation routes. And then just the concept of people, like along River Road, people own property where their vegetation goes right down to River Road because there's literally a steep cliff between the road and their back property, but they can't take care of that themselves. It requires traffic control and things like that. And I'm hoping that in a future meeting, perhaps next month, you could have a presentation on Measure H funding. How do people get involved in it? How can they get that funding? How can they get those crews? It seems to be a combination of SoCo Fire and CAL FIRE who's doing all this. And so we really need more information. It was a small group who attended this Measure H workshop. The money's available. We're heading into high fire season. I don't know how much can be done prior to higher fire season officially starting, but I got the impression that some of it could be done. So if we could have a presentation here at the MAC on what is Measure H funding, how do we access it, what are the projects that get covered under it, that kind of thing. That's what I'm requesting is a MAC agenda item. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you. I actually requested the same.
You did,
I,
you did. Oh, good job.
Anyone else in the audience have in anything? Tracy on Zoom?
We have one individual on Zoom. Steve, please unmute to speak.
Hi, yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, you have
Hi,
2
thank you.
minutes.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Vesta, for bringing that up. I was on the Zoom call with Chief Tuberville and Roberta McIntyre, and we appreciate all the work that is being done with Measure H, but it is a bit confusing, and having the workshop would be really helpful, or some sort of presentation, especially how Permit Sonoma might support communities that are wanting to move forward with projects, especially around the evacuation routes like Vesta mentioned. And that goes along with the recent safety plan, that there's a draft safety plan that the Permit Sonoma sent out a survey, and they had a input, and there's a lot of overlap with what Permit Sonoma is putting out, and with possibly how Measure H could assist in some of those identified high priority areas. So thanks you guys for your time this evening, and look forward to hopefully learning more about that in the future.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Tracy?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay, great. We're gonna move to the county update.
Thanks.
Who's on first?
Good evening, everybody. Wanted to start with a couple of happy announcements. One, actually, our chair already shared, but I really actually want to thank Pip for his tremendous leadership, and actually the leadership of the entire community of Rio Nido in bringing back the post office. And for those of you who don't have the full history, this was actually righting a wrong that occurred in the first Trump administration. It took us 8 years, but we finally emerged victorious. It involved the county having to buy PO boxes. We have never had to buy PO boxes as county government before, but we managed to get that done. And it's really a huge tribute to the Friends of Rio Nido, and also credit to Sonoma County Fire District, who actually sold them the building for an affordable amount of money to be able to continue to operate. So that is really a huge accomplishment, and it's really all credit to the community of Rio Nido. So thank you, Pep, for your work on that. Another exciting announcement. So it was last Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors voted to approve the funding package and acquire the Montervia Redwoods expansion. That property has not yet closed, so it is still owned currently, by MRC, the Mendocino Redwoods Company. But within the next few weeks, it will be closing and officially owned by Regional Parks, which is very exciting. We have been working closely with the Gianni Cycling Association, who kind of leased a portion of that property for use for quite some time. They actually built a beautiful network of trails, so there's an awesome pre-existing use, and we'll be inheriting a really kind of beautiful set of trails that we look forward to continuing to work with them on maintaining. They have an awesome group of folks who just volunteer and roll up their sleeves and put in the sweat equity to maintain the trail system. And they're very careful about not, mountain biking when it's too wet and wrecking the trails. So we look forward to continuing that effort. On Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors adopted the county budget for the year, showing a remarkable level of fiscal restraint and trying to honestly spend as little money as possible, just given the huge uncertainties in funding right now. We rely on hundreds of millions of dollars a year of federal funding, and quite a bit of that is currently at risk and in an uncertain future based on the current negotiation with the big, beautiful bill that has now moved on to the Senate. So we really don't know what the cuts will look like and what the impacts to services will be, but we're trying to kind of, hold our powder and sort of keep as much as we can at the county level to be able to hopefully, mitigate or at least smooth some of those cuts. The state is also in trouble, facing a $12 billion deficit that they are in the final stages of negotiating between the legislature and the governor's office. So we're also concerned about potential funding impacts there. And then our incorporated cities have also, you probably read in the newspaper that seems as though a majority, if not all of them, are also facing structural deficits. And so they're also coming to us as they cut back on things like homeless services, seeking additional support from the county. So tough times, but on the bright side, some of the things that we did do, we fully funded into the future the narcotics unit at the sheriff, banking on sort of the fact that we budgeted conservatively around property tax growth. And we believe that sort of it coming in slightly over what we had anticipated will allow us to fully fund the narcotics unit. So that's one thing. The other two things is that in terms of year-end savings, so that means the departments that come in under budget, or the contingencies, we had $1.2 million of Board of Supervisors contingencies that we didn't spend. All of that money will go into a kind of waterfall bucket that will include partly going to our reserves, which is important in uncertain times, and then actually $4 million to emergency road repair and $4 million to infrastructure. That $4 million will allow us to move more quickly on things like when we had Moscow Road, when we had West Side. So we want to sort of sock some money away essentially for next winter, wherever those road failures might be. On the infrastructure side, I will certainly be following up with public infrastructure to talk about the downtown plaza, among other West County priorities for potential infrastructure funding. So those are some of the things. We also are having conversations about the Bodega Bay Ice House, which is very on the fritz, I will say, and kind of past its usable length. So also wanted to mention, we have had a presentation, I think that was last week, on the EIFD, the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. The work with the city of Sebastopol is a bit on hold, but we are continuing to move forward, and we did receive board support and board direction to continue to pursue the unincorporated West County EIFD. There's a great report that I think Debbie wrote in your packet, and it explains how, originally we were looking at potentially one big thing. We now have two tracks, and it's sort of the city of Sebastopol and kind of immediately adjacent unincorporated areas, and then broader rural West County, where we can really just focus on what are those unincorporated rural investments that we want to work on. So thank you, Debbie, for writing that report. Also, everyone should have a copy of our PPP, which is government speak for our pavement preservation program, our 2-year roads funding cycle. I think it was about $36 million, $35 million, and 43 miles in total. We, as always, solicited feedback from all of you, from community members. Shay and I drove every, I think, foot of the terrible roads that were on the list to make the final determinations. There's never enough money to pave everything that we want to, but we worked really hard to try to create an equitable plan that kind of gets everybody a little something, and, you know, makes progress on some of our worst first types of roads. So happy to answer any questions on that too.
Is there any room to solicit? Getting something on this list now,
No, this list has been adopted, but we can absolutely start the list for the next cycle.
which I
So,
did
so
again. And was told we were on the list, and I see nothing in my
which road,
area.
which roads were you looking for?
In
specifically?
Hacienda. We were
Which-
looking at
which
River
roads?
Drive, Old River Road, Summercombe Park. Part of. Oh, I'm forgetting on the other side. No, not Auburn, not Terrace. I can get you the list, and I was told we were on the list, so I just wanna know what else I can do to help my community get some relief from.
So I will circle back to Che and find out what sort of happened with the Hacienda area. And I'm not going to sort of state this affirmatively, but I'm going to hazard a guess that I know that we have major retaining wall work happening in that area, and it might have been an issue of timing. That was supposed to be sort of completed so that we wouldn't then tear up the roads as we're doing the retaining wall work. But I believe
I'd
it's a
be happy to hear
multi-
about that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
great. So I will look into that and follow up. I do know that there is retaining wall work that was sort of multi-million-dollar retaining wall work from PG&E settlement funds slated for that area. So I could check on that status and find out what happened to the roads for
Okay.
sure.
I'm gonna be asked, there are some roads here in the PCI category as being very good. How come there are roads that are very good and good that are on here?
So I don't think that any of those are in West County. Those would be other districts who have, so it's divided up by supervisorial district and each district, you know, kind of has a set allocation of funds. So I would challenge you to find one in West County that is rated that way. And there is, I think, maybe one, but I drove it and the PCI is incorrect. There is a stretch of that road that is in decent shape, and there is a stretch that is nothing but potholes.
Cherry Ridge?
Cherry Ridge yes.
Okay.
It is, I would encourage you to drive it. There is a section that's okay. And then there are sections that are like cobblestones. So,
Yes.
yeah, so I would encourage you to drive that and see if you would agree with the PCI.
Again, I was asking, what do I say when people ask me? about
Yeah,
that?
no, I hear you. One thing that I do want to mention is that, you know, when I first got on the board, you know, 8 years ago, I asked the roads director how the funding was allocated. And she said it was basically kind of arm wrestling, and it kind of depended on, you know, who was running for re-election and how strongly they felt about roads. That is literally what she told me. And I said, wrong answer. And I actually ran an analysis, and I realized that most of the funding historically, I think I back past like 5 years, had gone to South County and North County, and East and West County had received a fraction of the percent of road miles, right? I mean, you can't divide this thing up 5 ways, because the third district has like this many roads, we have this many, right? And then the other districts are sort of somewhere in between. And so I advocated for it to be based on the road miles per district, which is the formula that is now used. But we're still catching up, which is why other districts who kind of took the lion's share, right, before I got on the board, might be able to pave. How nice would it be to pave very good roads? I would love to get to that point in West County, right? I'm jealous. No.
And then I still have the Canyon 6 Sequoia issue.
Yes.
Um,
And we have been working very hard, and one of the challenges with public infrastructure, who we love working with them, there has been so much turnover. And so folks who have the institutional knowledge about Rio Nito drainage work that we've been trying to get done, and also Villa Grand drainage work that we've been trying to get done, are no longer there. And so we're still honestly struggling to onboard someone who can take charge of those projects. And so those communities, we were really trying to wait for the drainage work and before
And
doing the roads.
I
and so,
intellectually
yeah,
get that.
so it's, yeah, so
my
it's.
people go.
I totally get it, and we really can't wait to have someone who is firmly in place at public infrastructure. You know, Janice left, who was the sort of,
Yeah.
and then there was no Janice, and then Johannes was Janice plus someone else who left, who went to Hawaii, and so Johannes was 3 people's jobs. And could not keep up with all of that. So we're hoping someone's gonna be onboarded and we'll be able to work with them on these projects, but totally hear the frustration, because we feel like we shouldn't have to educate them about what they're supposed to be doing, right? Anything else on roads?
The column that's headed bike plan, what's the difference between yes and no? What does that mean?
Just if it's part of our kind of active transportation bike plan network, I believe I think that's just a yes or no of, is it part of the county's bike plan that's approved by our bike pedestrian advisory council?
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, I know there's been a lot of questions about the Guerneville shelter. West County Community Services is reducing the capacity at the shelter to align with funding, which unfortunately is being cut by the state government. They're currently sheltering 38 people and they are not taking anyone new. The only folks who are actually exiting are people who have been there well over the shelter standards limit, who have been given 30-day notices. The shelter standards are 6 months in a 12-month period. Some guests have been there for over 3 years. So we are trying to make sure that the Department of Health Services is working closely with West County Community Services to try to find other placements for the folks who have received notices. So we are working really hard to make sure that happens. There is also a NOFA, or Notice of Funding Available, from Measure O that's coming out soon, and we're hoping that that might be able to assist West County Community Services with funding. Back to some more fun stuff. We had 19 grant awards for local public art projects. That was through our Community Public Art Project grant program, specifically for unincorporated areas of District 5. And that was funded by Tourism Impact Funds and our 5th District Community Infrastructure funds as well. And Creative Sonoma oversaw that. We had 25 eligible groups applied, and I will say that the Lower Russian River hit it out of the park. I think y'all had more approved projects than any other area in West County. So kind of going down Guerneville, we have the new Stone Spiral AIDS Memorial permanent display over at West County Health Centers. That was a partnership between Face to Face and the Sonoma County AIDS Network, and we're actually doing the dedication tomorrow night there. We have the Gateway to Forestville was approved. And also in Forestville, we have the Rain Garden Public Art Landscape Demonstration and Community Shared Space at the Forestville Water District. In Monterey, we have the River Remembers Monterey, a civic reunion. In Rio Neto, Community Fountain, a mosaic installation. In Guerneville, KGGB, River Theater Radio Light Up Sign. Also in Guerneville, continuing the downtown seasonal window art and decoration, and also a downtown beautification mural project through River Arts and Media. And the Chamber of Commerce, we're also working with them because they're going to need some help with permitting on an awesome Welcome to the Redwood sign that they actually want to put up across the road. So stay tuned on if we can figure out how to get that through Permit Sonoma. Also Hula Hooping for Joy. Hooping for Joy performance series also in Guerneville, and then a cultural healing mural at the Forestville Wellness Center in Forestville. And I think that I got all of them, but you all have a lot of awesome public art that has either come your way or will be coming your way soon. Also, and I think that actually best to touch on this, Measure H implementation is moving forward. And in May, the Board of Supervisors did appoint 11 members to the Measure H Oversight Committee. None of the appointees were explicitly identified as representing the Lower Russian River, but one member, Jackson William, is a former board member of the Russian River Fire Protection District and does live in the area. So we do, and I think that we actually had quite a few folks from the 5th District generally. So there was a pretty good representation from West County. That oversight committee will play a key role in reviewing expenditures and ensuring that rural and high-risk communities like ours are considered in future funding decisions. I also wanted to just mention it's not a Lower Russian River specific issue, but Tracy, who I know is on the line, and I have been working almost 24/7 on Elderberry Commons challenges that you may have read about in the Press Democrat. Happy to answer any questions that you have on that. Won't make a formal presentation, but happy to answer. I would guess that there's some, apprehension seeing what's happening there, thinking about Georgia's Hideaway, and I'm happy to address those head on. So with that, I'll hand it back to the chair.
All right, anyone in the council have
Questions?
I'm just glad you're thinking about that because it's the first thing.
I will say that, you know, the probably only silver lining is that we have a lot of lessons learned for how to ensure a smoother transition and a smoother start to George's Hideaway. And I think that we also are going to be reconsidering some policies. Like right now, the service providers don't actually have kind of a final opportunity to interview tenants before they they occupy the property. That might actually allow, you know, sort of, if you have kind of incompatible folks, that might actually prevent that from happening. Or if there are people who are not totally ready for housing, that also might allow them to, you know, not move in if it doesn't seem like they're in a place to be in stable housing. So yeah, and at some point I want to grab lunch with you and just kind of pick your brain, because I know that you work tirelessly on these issues as well when you're not here. So
I have a question about that. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just said, saying anything.
anytime, yeah.
How much time are the case managers or case manager spending there? Are you aware of?
Yeah, so we have multiple case managers there, Monday through Friday. I believe, it's basically business hours. I have this all in my email and in the report that's actually in the, City of Sebastopol's agenda packet for their Tuesday night meeting, but there are multiple caseworkers on site. And Burbank is actively working to shift to 24/7 security, although we don't have a start date yet because the security firm is trying to staff up to make that happen.
And it's West County that's providing the case management.
Yeah, and the important distinction, I think a lot of folks were confused about who is responsible for what. You know, both, you know, kind of on the Sebastopol City Council, potentially members of the public, and maybe even possibly some of the tenants. West County Community Services is there to provide case management, social services, support during the day. But it is Burbank that is tasked with upholding the terms of the lease and ensuring that those are followed. So, and there was already sort of a transition with a property manager that happened early on. And so then it was sort of being staffed by corporate. And I think that partly that created a little bit of a vacuum early on before the current property manager moved in. That was at a tough time for that to happen.
The reason why I bring that up is because I'm spending a great deal of time reading case notes for Caritas Homes. Because I'm doing the billing and seeing how difficult these transitions are. The case managers there spend every day, all day, checking in with people on a regular basis. And it's a tough group. And it's been a big transition for Catholic Charities as well, and Burbank over there.
Yeah, when I think about sort of, you know, how we've seen homeless encampments, you know, along the Lower Russian River and also in Roseland, and how the ones that sort of actually functioned as a community, it really took having a strong camp leader who would kind of enforce rules, check in on people, and they were often like more like 12 to 15 people. And so, you know, suddenly you have a couple dozen people who have come from different places and trying to reestablish that sense of community, and that sense of community, almost self-policing and self-rules, right? And kind of that reinforcement is, I think, challenging to get that right. So.
Just a quick question, observation for Villabrand. Your comment about in some instances, you may be waiting for drainage work to be done to do repaving. We've been waiting, we actually applied for and got a grant to do a drainage study years ago. It was done, there was a proposal made. And then, as you noted, people come and go. Drainage is not gonna happen in our community, but actually paving the roads would help our drainage problem. And so people there are very tired of waiting to hear if somebody's gonna do something about the clogged drains and the failed culverts to just pave our roads. So I really question whether that is the right approach for everywhere. Certainly Villagrand doesn't feel that's the right approach.
You are getting a road paved in Villagrand though.
One of them.
So, yeah, and it wasn't actually, I don't believe that it was a grant that was applied for. I believe it was funding that I actually secured through the budget process for the study, because public infrastructure asked me for money for the Villagrand drainage study, and we found a way of getting it.
Well, it may have
So,
been matching, because I know Roberto Estevez applied for a grant and got it. But put that aside, we can't just wait forever to get passable streets. And yes, thank you so much for the one street. We appreciate that.
I had a question just on the roads. Of the 35 million, how much of that is that all county general fund, or is there grant funding in there, or?
So it's a mix. We actually have the highest investment of county general fund of any county in the state of California, partly because we honestly don't get nearly enough from the state because state sort of percentages for the gas tax have historically been based on the number of vehicle registrations. So if you don't have that many vehicles and you have a ton of road miles and a ton of tourists, right, we sort of end up in the extreme part of that example where the funding is woefully inadequate. So it's a mix of state funding, federal funding, and county general fund, plus a small amount of quarry mitigation dollars that come from, that we're actually using to pave Occidental Road this year. That's part of the network of roads that quarry trucks drive on. And so that comes from folks paying in Forestville into that network. Previously, we used those funds to pave Mirabel.
Good year. Anyone, oh, go ahead.
Do you have any updates on the dam?
Oh, no, so does anyone else have any updates on the dam? I think, are you on that?
I thought it was, I'm not on
That,
that.
okay, you're not on the
I'm
board.
not on
Okay,
that.
on that board.
But what Marcy told me is they got someone in place and it was gonna go up.
That's what I had heard. I had heard that
Those
like
are the
they got the
vacation
permits.
beach dam.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
Just
I had-
wondering. I know they're putting the bridge in.
Yeah.
That's happening for sure.
Yep,
The obstacle that they had has been,
Oh,
is
good.
what I understood.
that's what I think I heard from you actually, that the permit that they had gotten the approval for the permits.
Good. That's good for the river, and good for recreation.
Anyone in the room? Besta,
Question about.
Can you go to the,
Okay.
go to the podium.
My question is short, the pavement preservation program. I don't see River Road on this list. There is a section of River Road on Rio Vista, et cetera, that has a retaining wall between the river and the road, and it's got huge cracks in it. And on the rivers, the retaining wall side, there's cracks that is starting to lower. So like on a motorcycle, that's really obvious, but in a car, it's not so much, but the cracks are getting wider and wider. And what I see is that water will come into those cracks, and even though there's a retaining wall there, I don't know how much the retaining wall can hold River Road, and it's literally the whole, what would you call, westbound side of the road is already degrading. And so it would be, seemed like if you could even just fill those cracks before the rainy season happens, you might mitigate that problem until it can be completely fixed, because there's something failing with that retaining wall.
Okay, and you said near Hacienda?
It's before the, you all,
Yeah, I drive it every day.
every day, so I define where exactly is before.
It's between
It's between,
Scenic and River Drive.
yeah.
Thank you all for finding the location that we're all concerned about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Supervisor Hopkins, can you give us any update on the Granville Plaza, maybe the places past Monday?
It's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually, Shay was at that meeting, and so I do not have an update, from that meeting. I don't think he's online, but I can definitely follow up. I'm happy to provide that information via email. So,
Okay, sure.
yeah, and that was what I mentioned for, the $4 million from the kind of waterfall of year-end savings. My hope would be to, work with public infrastructure and see if we can secure any of that funds for implementation of the plaza.
Do you know who's doing any design work? Is that Praxis that would be involved with that?
I'm not sure. I know that we, I believe that we have a facilitator kind of working on, coming, like sort of trying to get consensus in the business community, but I need to check with Che on the status of that project.
I think it was.
Just informationally, they've reached out, the facilitators reached out to a lot of people and done a lot of interviews in addition to that meeting.
And there will be more meetings. I was at the tail end of that meeting because I didn't get there till 6.
That was kind of,
Yeah, and they were very clear that there will be more focus groups. And they're looking at setting up at events and getting information, getting input from people, having a presentation for the public. maybe even on the plaza. To invite the entire public to come, because the one on Monday was strictly business.
So was it Noe that he facilitated?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think Noe is the facilitator and then Brian and Stephanie
And-
are working on design.
And they were there.
I don't know if this is helpful feedback, but I did hear from my husband who's on the chamber that they were excited about the designs so far at this process. So I don't know, but there's gonna be more focus groups.
Anyone online have a question for Supervisor Hopkins?
There's one hand raised. Steve, please unmute to speak.
Hi, yes, thank you Supervisor for the updates and the hard work on the roads. Look forward to reviewing that report. And I want to thank Vicky for mentioning the section of road and the retaining wall project that you had indicated before. There's PG&E settlement funds that are, and it wasn't clear to me if those funds are earmarked already, but it's identified as a $1.5 million project. And you had said that you were checking with infrastructure and they were going to let you know the timeline for it maybe going out to bid. Is that something that you would be willing to follow up with again to just see if there is a timeline? It might not be for another year, but wanting to know if those funds are earmarked or whether those funds could be taken for another project, because now there's additional damage on Summer Home Park Road. So I think the infrastructure was looking at sending out engineers to evaluate that. So we look forward to hearing what they think of that, and hopefully just continue the good work they're doing on West Side Road and Wohler Bridge. So thanks for the update.
Yeah, so I can confirm that those funds cannot be pulled away. That was a list that we approved, actually, I think multiple years ago in terms of the PG&E settlement funds, and that was identified as a top priority for public infrastructure, because were that retaining wall to fail, it would really cut off access, critical evacuation route to that community. However, we can definitely follow up with public infrastructure and find out what the timing is likely to be, when it will go out to bid, not whether it will go out to bid. So when will it go out to bid?
Anyone else, Tracy?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
All right, great, thanks. We're gonna move on to 8.
I want to just make one county update.
Oh, yeah.
On Saturday, June 21st, and I know some of you have a conflict because you're going to be tabling for the math at Rio Fest. There's also a co-design community meeting for Project 100. And Project 100, if you haven't heard of it, is supporting the well-being and development of young children ages 0 to 5 and their families. So they're just hosting this event 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Guerneville School to brainstorm and prototype ideas and solutions. So it's a big brainstorming session. They're really looking for new eyes. They've been working on this for a couple of years now. I've been involved in some of the meetings. And so if that interests you at all, Karen Mitchell's email address is here. They're just looking for RSVPs because they will have food and they will have childcare. Have kids to take care of.
Right. Okay, we're gonna move on to the general plan update, and I believe we have Haley
Yes.
and Katrina online. Are you there?
Hi, good evening. Yes, we're here. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Katrina Bramer, a supervising planner with Permit Sonoma, and I'm here accompanying my colleague Haley Fry to speak with you all about a comprehensive update to the county's general plan. And thanks so much for having us. So the last time that Permit Sonoma spoke with you all about the general plan was at a MAC meeting last September to discuss interim updates to the general plan that are necessary to comply with state law. And these include an update to the existing safety element of the general plan and development of a new environmental justice element. And just as a reminder, these two element updates are moving forward separately and in advance of the comprehensive general plan update in order to meet state mandates. And our focus tonight with you guys is the process for the general plan or the comprehensive general plan update. But we did just want to provide a quick update on the safety and EJ elements, especially because your feedback in September did help us ultimately did help us draw up those draft goals, policies, and objectives that are in the current draft of the safety element. So in April, we released drafts of the safety and EJ elements for public review and collected comments through a variety of different methods. And since then, we've been reviewing the public feedback that we received and sort of tweaking things and refining those elements. And last week, the Planning Commission did consider the safety element update at a public hearing and made a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to adopt the update. And then the EJ element is anticipated to go before the Planning Commission in July. And provided that the Commission also makes a recommendation to the board at that time, both elements are going to proceed to the Board of Supervisors for consideration in August or early September. So with that little update, I'll let Haley get started on our presentation tonight, and then we hope to hear from you all on a few questions that will help us shape our next steps in the larger general plan update process. So I'll pass it to Haley. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Katrina. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll just confirm that it's up on screen correctly. All right. Everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. And then I'm just going to make sure that the slides click through correctly because sometimes they don't share. Great. Did it move slides?
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. All right. Hello again. My name is Haley Fry. I'm the project manager for the general plan update. And then again with me today is supervising planner Katrina Bramer. Thanks again for having us this evening. Our presentation tonight is going to cover some background information about the general plan and the update process, and then why it's important, outreach we've done so far, and then some next steps. So let's start with the basics. The general plan is a long-term policy document, typically looks about 20 years into the future and lays out a vision for Sonoma County's unincorporated areas. It guides decisions on land use, growth, infrastructure, and environmental protection to make sure they align with community priorities. The plan includes a land use map that designates how land can be used. So whether for housing, businesses, agriculture, or open space. And these decisions impact where homes and businesses are built, how neighborhoods develop, and then what kinds of services are nearby. It also affects daily life in pretty practical ways and plays a role in shaping our job opportunities, the character of our communities, our transportation systems, access to parks, disaster preparedness, and the protection of natural and cultural resources. So this update is important because it really gives you a chance to help shape how Sonoma County grows and changes in the coming years based on what matters most to you and your community. The county's first general plan was adopted in 1978, and it emphasized protection of agricultural lands, open space, and community character, with policies really intended to focus development in urban areas. It also introduced the concept of community separators, which are open space areas that typically separate cities and other communities, which help to contain urban development and support individual identities in those cities and communities. So those community separators were later adopted by Sonoma County voters in 1996 and then reaffirmed through voter approval in 2016. The first update to the plan happened in 1989, and that's when the county added some new elements that state law required the general plan to address. And then that same update also furthered the county's preservation policies for agricultural and resource lands, including some additional protections for streams and scenic resources. Then the last update happened in 2008, and prepared the current general plan, which is called General Plan 2020, and added policy guidance to support affordable housing, resource protections, and water resource policies. It also provided some localized policy guidance for specific areas in the county. Like I mentioned, the county's current General Plan 2020, has been in place since 2008. The general plan is being updated to reflect the evolving conditions of the county and region over the past 16 years, as well as bring it into compliance with current state law requirements. So this update is known as General Plan Sonoma, and we're currently in phase 1 of that update that we've called the community vision phase. So this phase focuses on establishing a shared vision for Sonoma County's future. And some of the work so far has included a preliminary audit of the existing general plan, development and implementation of our community engagement plan, and then it'll conclude with a report for the Board of Supervisors in August, outlining what we heard from the community and then recommendations on how to move forward into phase 2 policy development. So after this phase, we'll proceed with our next phase, which will be the multi-year policy development phase. So this slide provides an overview for the schedule for the first phase of the update. Our work really kicked off last summer with some background work, including preparation of that community engagement strategy that I talked about. Then in January and February, we began implementing that community engagement plan, beginning with a set of community workshops, and then also launching an online community visioning survey. And then beginning in March, we launched really the second phase of our workshops that were focused on understanding the key opportunities and challenges in individual communities across the county. And then now we're wrapping up our outreach for this phase of the update and meeting with advisory councils to hear really their perspectives and recommendations. So as part of this phase of the project, we'll be using feedback from all of the engagement we're doing to create a vision statement and guiding principles for the general plan that really reflects Sonoma County and what matters to the community here. So that vision statement will describe really the desired future for Sonoma County and reflect that shared community values we've heard throughout the process. And then that vision statement will be supported by a set of guiding principles that speak to specific topics that are covered by the general plan. So the idea is that the guiding principles will really break down the elements of the vision into more focused parts, each centered on a specific topic. And these principles will then form the foundation for the goals and policies that make up the bulk of the general plan. So now I'm just going to provide a bit of an overview of our outreach so far. So community input is obviously an essential part of this process. This slide just kind of includes how we're gathering feedback and getting the word out during this first phase. So we've sent out over 50,000 postcards at the beginning of this process to just notify residents about the update. And then we've created a dedicated general plan update webpage that includes things like background information, upcoming events, and other ways to engage with us during the process. We've been using social media, sending out newsletters, and coordinating with district staff. We've been doing 2 rounds of community workshops. We've done online surveys, focus group meetings with underserved communities, and we've also participated in local events like farmers markets and cultural celebrations. And as I mentioned, again, we're meeting with advisory councils at this point in the process. And then the next few slides that are included in this presentation will cover some more specifics about our engagement efforts. And these will all be a part of a community engagement dashboard that we're planning on posting on our website soon. So we should be finishing up development about in the next 2 weeks. So our first round of workshops were community visioning workshops. We held a total of 6 of these workshops, 2 virtual and then 4 centrally located in person in Sonoma Valley, Pengrove, Healdsburg, and Forestville. Altogether, 271 people participated in this workshop series. They were about 2 hours long and included a presentation and then some breakout groups facilitated by staff, and then a report out by each group at the end. So the workshops focused on pretty broad topics. A few examples are growth management and development, accessibility and circulation, protection of natural resources, agriculture, and food. And some key themes that we heard from these workshops included the importance of diversifying agriculture and supporting small farms, a desire to focus growth in and around cities where infrastructure and services already exist, the need for a variety of housing options to serve all residents, including both seniors and young families, and expanding access to open space and recreational opportunities. So like I mentioned, we did hold one of our community vision workshops in Forestville. That workshop was held at the Forestville Community Library at the end of January, and we had about 47 participants and received over 300 comments. And some of those themes that came from groups across that specific workshop were concerns about evacuation routes and road conditions, a need for better balance for the impacts of tourism, interest in more parks and open space, water conservation and sustainable resource management, strong need for affordable housing and a variety of housing types, and desire for safer, more connected bike paths. The next series of workshops we hosted were local community workshops that were set up more like open houses. We held 11 of these workshops, 9 in person and 2 virtual, and spoke with 214 participants. These meetings were designed to gather more detailed community-specific feedback based on where each workshop was held. So we organized them as open houses featuring maps of the surrounding area and encouraged attendees to really talk with staff and share what they value about their communities and also discuss the challenges they're facing locally. We held one of these open houses at Guerneville School back in early March that was focused on the Lower Russian River, Forestville, Guerneville, Monterey, and Cazadero areas. We also wanted to share some of the comments we heard from participants at that event, including appreciation for the small town feel, community spirit, and redwoods, concerns about local job opportunities and bicyclist safety, and then also a desire for a safer pedestrian access to Guerneville from Guernwood Park. We also wanted to share a few highlights from our community pop-up events. We attended 12 pop-up events in total and connected with about 500 people. Some of the events included Butter and Eggs Days, the Apple Blossom Festival, Roseland Cinco de Mayo, and Sonoma County Pride. These pop-ups really allowed us to engage with people who might not be familiar with the planning process or might not have time to attend a more formal meeting. Along with community organization meetings, they helped us reach a broader and more diverse group of residents. One of those pop-ups was also held at the Guerneville Safeway back in May, and we spoke with about 25 people about the general plan update. So next we'll be wrapping up our phase 1 engagement activities, including these advisory council meetings. We'll then gather the feedback, or we'll then use the feedback we've gathered to draft that vision statement and set of guiding principles for the general plan, and prepare a scope report that summarizes what we've heard from the community and outlines recommendations for how to move forward into phase 2 based on that feedback. So that report will be presented to the Board of Supervisors this August. And really as a part of this process and a part of really why we're here is to hear directly from you as the Lower Russian River Municipal Advisory Council about what makes your community special, priorities or concerns that are top of mind, what you'd like to see in your community's future, and then also how you'd like to stay involved in the general plan update process. And then I'm happy to come back to this slide, but also just wanted to highlight that we really want to make it easy for people to stay connected and up to date with the project. So you can visit our website to find out, latest updates, upcoming events, and then we also host materials from past meetings. And we also encourage you to sign up for our email list so that you can get updates in your inbox. And that concludes our presentation.
Council members, questions, comments?
Quick question. At this stage, are you happy with the quantity and quality of public input that you have gotten? Or are you talking to us because you really would like us to reach out to the people in our communities to increase the input that you're getting?
Sure. So I think as staff, we feel really good about the outreach that we've done, and we're just really coming to these advisory meetings just as another way to engage and meet with you all to talk about the process and how we continue to engage with you in the future. And just kind of a brief report out in advance of that board meeting in August.
Anyone else in the, so I know you got some input from us before, but if you go to the slide that you said you'd come back to, do you want any comments from the council or the people in public here now about some of those questions you asked, for more input?
Yeah, so we'd love to hear from you as members of this advisory body and also from the public. And then again, if anything comes up for you after this meeting, that's why I have this slide in here as well. You can always reach out to us via our email or our website to provide additional comments to us.
Okay, so why don't we go back to the slide and we'll use that as a kind of a starter for
Yeah.
the council.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. Mine is more of a question rather than a comment. So you're asking, how do you hope to see or stay involved, like the community or this body? I guess my question is, what is the plan as you move forward in developing those policies? Is that done by just Permit Sonoma and then goes to the board or the planning commission, or do you plan on coming back to groups like this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Happy to answer that. That's a great question. So part of what we're taking to the board is really just kind of a preliminary set of a scope of how to move forward. And then similar to this phase 1 process, we'll develop another community engagement plan. Our current community engagement plan is a public document that's also posted on our website, and that we took both to the planning agency and the board. So we'll develop another engagement strategy to continue engaging with community members, stakeholders, planning agency, and the board, and ideally, advisory bodies such as this as well. So I know a couple have created, general plan ad hoc committees. So it's our assumption that that's how they intend to primarily communicate with us. But as part of the process of developing that plan and really seeing kind of what folks want from us in the future, that's our intent of asking that question as well, is what do you kind of want to see in that plan? How do you want us to engage with you? What's kind of most convenient, I guess, is a better way to put that.
Any other?
I have a question. Thank you for the presentation. I will definitely reach out on using the link as well. But just to start, I guess, I'm curious about, are you considering updates to zoning? I definitely think there's a lot of like structural barriers for different types of projects in West County. And I know that there's a lot of frustrations with the permitting process and like what is legal to do on your own space, especially like being a tourist town and different, like ways in which people can develop businesses while still respecting the character of our town and being good for our community. I just think that there's a lot of people who are not investing in this part of the county because there's too much red tape in certain ways. And so I'm just curious if you have kind of like big zoning changes that you're considering and what those might be.
Yeah, so as part of this process, there's an implementation process that happens after, where you do typically have to do a larger zoning code update that would involve things like that. So if there's something even more specific, there's an opportunity to likely update our zoning code even in advance of this multi-year next phase that we're coming forward with, as long as it really kind of aligns with our current general plan policies, which I'm sure a number of things could align with that. So there's kind of a couple ways, I guess, about going about that. But But yes, a larger implementation process where we would look at zoning code updates would really happen kind of at the end or in tandem maybe with the end process.
Got it. Thank you.
And I just might add to that, just for clarity on zoning updates, is that the zoning code does need to be consistent with the general plan. And so the general plan is sort of that high level programmatic document that guides our more specific regulations for land use, things like, things like zoning, but also subdivision regulations. So the general plan is really the basis for our more specific property and land use regulations. And so as Haley said, part of the policy development process is developing the policies that will guide future updates to the zoning code that will happen after the general plan update is adopted. So we definitely want to hear about that in this upcoming phase, the phase 2 process. What are barriers to zoning what are zoning barriers to property use and supporting businesses and supporting residents? And how can the general plan help facilitate or better facilitate the things that people want to do with their property?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering, did you want us to continue to encourage members of our communities to give you their feedback? Or are we coming to a close on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a multi-year process, so this isn't the only time to get feedback. We're really just wrapping up kind of the visioning phase right now, and then after that, there will be continued engagement and also opportunity to continue to reach out to us and give us feedback. So yes, we would like everyone's feedback.
Great. Anyone in the room? Yep, that's good.
Because I'm on your list, I got an email with a QR code of survey. And I shared it on the Lower Mac Facebook page, not knowing that it was supposed to be specific to a list of people that you have chosen to send a survey out to. And it said you could come back into it, and I only just started it, and then when I came back into it, it said, thank you for taking the survey. So I've not been able to get back into it. But my question is, why would you just limit it to people like me who would answer those questions? Is there a time when you're going to put it out to the entire community? Because those surveys you can, collate the results really easily on those kinds of surveys. So I'm thinking it would be great to have people who are not as generally involved as someone like us who are always paying attention, the people who have more personal issues that have to do with their neighborhoods. I'm wondering, is that possible that you could send that survey out in a more public way?
So we did have an open survey for a number of months that was just posted to our website that we marketed as part of our outreach effort. And then our second survey that we have is a statistically significant survey, which is the one that you received, which is essentially a randomized survey. So we're using a sub-consultant to conduct that survey for us, where we're going to use those results. So it is a randomized survey.
So if I wanted to get back into the survey, since I was unable to, I would contact the person who was on that email?
Yes, so you can reach out to us as well. I would recommend reaching out directly to us, and we can help you out with that.
Do you want answers to those questions you have up on the board right now?
Yeah, you're certainly welcome to answer any of those questions.
Well, one of the ones that I want to make sure community special to you is our neighborhoods.
That's right, you got 2 seconds.
2 seconds. So I would like to have preservation of neighborhoods, and that involves things like septic systems updates. And should fire come through our neighborhoods, that's something that's going to have to be addressed, because most people would not be able to replace their septic systems. So since I don't have time to go through the other ones, I would just say preservation of our neighborhoods is extremely important to what preserves this community.
Thanks, Jessica. Anyone else? Yep.
Hi,
Thanks for the presentation and for your community outreach, because I've attended a couple of those and they've been very helpful. So I just want to give feedback about Forestville in specific description. And I love our small town friends, you know, but specific to Forestville, we are challenged because we do not have a parks department. And so that was a big feedback that people are, the open space priority and wanting to have little parks in our communities. And Forestville does not have its own parks department. So regional parks is our parks department, but for whatever reason, they're not able to participate with the project that I'm leading. I'm the president of Forestville Skate Spot. And so I just wanted to again reiterate how important it is to have public community parks as a place where people can go to, walk to, easily access. And the space we're looking at right now is very accessible to the trail. And it's very continuous with all the whole trail through to the other parks in Sebastopol, et cetera. So if there's any way the general plan can prioritize little parks in communities, especially Forestville, where we don't have a parks department, I would greatly appreciate that and advocate for that. Thank you.
Anyone online?
We have one hand raised online. Steve, please unmute to speak.
Hi, thank you, Haley and Katrina. I too did fill out one of the surveys, both for the safety plan and the general plan, and do appreciate the public input process. I thank you for answering the questions. I was under the impression that somehow what you were presenting in August to the Board of Supervisors is going to be the final draft. Can you confirm that there's still room for additions or alterations to what the document that you had sent out? Because I mentioned in there that although you zone the county into 12 areas, it didn't have Hacienda, Hollydale Canyon, or Terrace. They're part of Forestville, but they're specific to along the river, as Vesta, I'm sure, can say that there's some specific safety concerns with the evacuation routes in those areas with dead end roads. And I know that it's addressed in the safety plan, but just wondering if that's something that's still open to input or changes to the draft that you sent out.
Hi, Steve. This is Katrina. Thanks for your comments. I can speak to that a little bit. So it sounds like your comments are specific to the draft safety element, which is, again, a separate process from the larger general plan update, which Haley just presented on. So the safety element did proceed to the Planning Commission last week for their review. And as part of that, they reviewed public comments. There were a series of public comments related to the evacuation, sort of the high-level evacuation assessments that were completed as part of the safety element update and to meet certain state requirements. And those assessments are intended to be high level at this point. And we have heard from the community that there is interest in more detailed looks at specific evacuation route areas, specific communities and neighborhoods. And so in order to sort of reflect that desire, we are including a program in the safety element to do some additional analysis of different communities and what their evacuation constraints are as part of the larger general plan update. So our primary goal for the safety element update is to meet the state requirements, which we think we have done with the work that's been presented to the Planning Commission. And, you know, at this point, we're not anticipating significant changes to the safety element update unless that's board directed when we proceed to the board in August. However, with the larger general plan update, there's going to be technical analysis that is done in order to feed into the policy discussions that we'll be having with the community and with stakeholders. And so we do anticipate that the safety element that ultimately gets adopted this year, the update, will require technical revisions or, modest technical revisions and may include new and revised policies and programs related to evacuation. So this current safety element update is not a one bite at the apple. We'll definitely have more opportunity to discuss evacuation concerns and how that feeds into land use decisions and infrastructure and emergency preparedness. We'll continue those conversations in the larger general plan update process. And our focus right now is compliance with state law so that we can then continue on to this larger update process and open up those other elements, because the general plan does ultimately work as a cohesive document. And right now, that's sort of the only two elements that we have open at the moment are the safety element and the environmental justice element. So with the larger update process, we'll be able to look at everything a little bit more cohesively, and we'll be thinking about how to dive into deeper the concerns about evacuation with the larger update process.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to pilot trash outreach study. And, oh, is it Alyssa?
It is Alyssa. Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Well, thank you so much to my planner colleagues. It's a Permit Sonoma party tonight, but that was a really great presentation. Good job, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and share. And I'll hope that this works. Oh, sorry. Okay. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Great, great. And you guys can still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first MAC meeting, and it was so illuminating to hear all the great work that's being done out in the Lower Russian River, inspiring to me. And again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Alyssa Keenan, and I'm a senior environmental specialist also at Permit Sonoma, and I sit over in the Natural Resources Division. And my job kind of encompasses more management and being a permittee of our regional water boards, municipal stormwater permits. So Sonoma County actually is a split jurisdiction between two water boards. So we have two municipal stormwater permits, and so it makes my job really fun. But the impetus behind me coming here today is our answer to a requirement that is being handed to us by the State Water Board, which kind of governs how we are going to be discharging or trying to prevent the discharge of trash through our stormwater system. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into the background here. So in 2015, can you guys see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. In 2015, the State Water Board passed what's called the trash provisions, which essentially prohibit the discharge of trash that's larger than a cigarette butt through municipal stormwater infrastructure into surface waters by 2030. So it's a very ambitious goal that the state is taking on. Every MS4 permittee across the state has to adhere to these provisions by a combination of institutional controls such as policies, public outreach, as well as structural BMPs like trash capture devices and increased street sweeping, all kinds of different best management practices that we can implement to try to reach this really ambitious goal. So Sonoma County Unincorporated is a co-permittee under the Regional Water Board's Phase 1 permit for municipal discharges. Our other co-permittees are the City of Santa Rosa, all the Russian River watershed draining municipalities, Santa Rosa, Town of Windsor, Sebastopol, Healdsburg, all the way up to Ukiah. And so in response to these, that looming deadline, we all collectively got together last year, started talking through what do we want to do in terms of a trash outreach campaign, what will work in our regions, what strategies can we pilot out to see what's going to really move the dial in terms of reducing trash from the streets. So that was kind of the regulatory impetus behind all this, and kind of just what we're kind of trying to do in response. So we came up with what's called the EPIC campaign, which stands for Every Piece Inspires Change. Every piece of trash, every strategy we put down there against the wall is going to hopefully inspire change and result in a measurable reduction in trash in our most heavily trash burdened areas. For unincorporated county, since I am technically the stormwater coordinator for our phase 1 boundary, I selected Guerneville as a pilot area. Number one, because the community is so rich. It's a vibrant community. It attracts a lot of tourism. It attracts a lot of trash generating activities. And I really felt that it was a place that we could really engage with the community to try to see if these outreach strategies could work. In addition to a campaign that would be advertised and show people and inspire people visually to pick up trash, we also wanted to do what's called a public perception cleanup. People don't want to litter in a clean space. So can we test out strategies for maybe doing street cleanups or increase street sweeping, leverage what our franchises agreements that we have with Recology and for trash collection. So that was kind of another prong to it. And then the third prong is actually installing barriers that people could utilize instead of throwing their trash into the street or having their trash overflow. So different types of trash cans and different types of more frequent servicing of trash cans. And I know you guys are all very familiar with the trash complications out in Guerneville. So this has been a learning opportunity along the way. And so the pilot study that we're doing, it's not a silver bullet to solve all of Guerneville's trash problems, but it is one that we are learning so much from, and one that will be an iterative process. So I'm really looking forward to hearing feedback from you guys tonight about what strategies we could maybe fold into this. But for those of you who have been around the Guerneville area since last Thursday, you might have noticed these, we're calling them creek critters. They're environmental graphics that we have engaged with businesses in the community to actually put in their store windows. We were inspired a lot by Banksy, which is a very famous street artist that kind of puts up these graphics without any words, but it piques public interest. And so that was kind of what we were trying to emulate here. But we also want to kind of make it as iconic as, Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute, Smokey the Bear, those environmental icons that we all know and remember because we have been exposed to them for so long. So this is real, and this is very grassroots. But we started implementing this last Thursday. We had about 13 businesses that signed on that said, yes, put this in my window. Let's test it out. And I will say simultaneously to this, the city of Santa Rosa, town of Windsor, Healdsburg, Cloverdale, Ukiah, they also have been installing these environmental graphics in their pilot areas. So for example, the city of Santa Rosa chose Sebastopol Avenue as their pilot outreach area. And they're also installing the same style graphic to create continuity across the region. So people are seeing these things, they're like, what is this? This is just kind of a scale to show how big they are. At the biggest, the otter is 2 feet tall. And we're also having them hold trash. And this was a very long process with Recology, color coding the trash to what type of receptacle it should go in. The blue is recycling. The pink is landfill trash, and the green, is meant to be compost trash. And they'll have QR codes on them. There's no signs, there's no words by design. It's really for people to see these things and go, what's going on? What is this? And scan the QR code, which will then lead them to the Streets to Creeks website. And I failed to mention Streets to Creeks is our stormwater outreach campaign that the county and the rest of the phase 1 co-permittees pay into to advertise and educate the public about stormwater. So this is kind of what they look like out in the wild and what you might have seen in store windows. I will say the perception has been actually very positive since these have been installed. In mid-April, we've already had 448 QR code scans. I'm not sure how they've been doing in Guerneville. We can't, attribute specific locations, but they are gaining traction, and the website actually has gotten a lot of visits, over 65,000 visits as of the beginning of June. And across Meta and Google, we've been getting millions of impressions. So people are noticing them, they are scanning them, they're going to Streets to Creeks website, which the landing page is structured towards trash. They're hopefully reading through and learning about our trash burden and what ways they can do to help. So it's been kind of an exciting thing to roll out. We haven't had a lot of vandalism, thankfully, knock on wood. A couple signs were stolen in Healdsburg, of all places, but so far so good. Most of them have stayed up and are making an impact on the community. Simultaneously to that, that 3-pronged approach, we did also couple this with a Earth Day cleanup event along the streets around First Street and Main Street of Guerneville. It was very fun. We had a small but mighty group of 9 of us that went ahead and collected 80 pounds of trash, and we got a lot of help from Riverkeeper to give us the supplies, and it was a really fun day. But it was really eye-opening to look at what type of trash we were collecting, where it is in Guerneville, and just kind of create that clean slate for when we eventually rolled out the environmental graphics. And then finally, that third piece of the campaign is really to be focusing on barriers. And this has been the hardest one to do. And as you guys are very familiar, Guerneville, they have the sidewalk improvement project going with Caltrains, Sonoma Public Infrastructure, Caltrans, and Recology have been big partners on this campaign. So they're aware. What we hope to do eventually is to possibly, in addition to the new trash cans that will be rolled out when the sidewalk improvements are done, we're really hoping to maybe test out trash compactor cans and see if that can also help improve the trash burden in Guerneville, because as we understand it, those trash cans get very overwhelmed. So perhaps maybe a trash compactor can could work. And there's no promises yet because it's been a lot of people to go through, but we have secured funding for the cans. We just need to keep pushing this through the finish line. So that's my next step with this campaign. The campaign will be running until August, and then we'll take all of the environmental creek critters down. Throughout that campaign, I'm going to be assessing effectiveness by doing on-land trash visual assessments, which is our protocol for assessing priority land uses for the amount of trash that they've encumbered. So we stratify the streets into different categories, ranging from low trash generating to very high. And we're going to see if maybe this campaign has moved the dial on some of the scores that we have already done for our baseline. And then looking to the next year, I mean, this was a pilot study, but we've already collectively as co-permittees have learned so much. And we're really hoping to build on what we are learning, to adjust and to reiterate, because this is not, the trash provisions are still going to be, they're not going to go away past 2030. We really need to make sure that whatever strategies we implement for outreach are well thought out, well researched, and also effective. And we're not hemorrhaging money towards outreach methods that are not resonating in the community. So again, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to have your guys' input on this as subject matter experts and as residents in the community to offer any advice or any feedback that you have. And here's my contact information too. If you want to follow up by email or phone, I'm always happy to chat and learn from the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council.
I thank you so much, Alyssa. This is a subject that's near and dear to me and a lot of other people on the council. We've had numbers of ad hocs that have tried to deal with cleaning the communities up and find roadblocks in that. And, you know, I think the main thing, I wish that, and I know we're doing some in the tourism piece now, but you know, we just want people who come into our communities to enjoy it, but to understand that, you know, we live here too, and that we need them to be responsible about picking up, you know, pick up what you cook in and all of that. And so anytime you can get that message out as well, like come enjoy it, but we have trash cans, or, you know, you can clean up after yourself. So, well, we actually have a public park that's a beach near my house. If we have 4 or 5 trash cans there, they're often overflowing, by the way, but that's another story. So I just, any of those messages that you get out, you know, come and enjoy it, but take care of it too, you know. And it all goes in the river, and that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think you know, it was a very for me, I'm not a resident in the community. I didn't want to approach this as being someone that comes in and just says this is how we're going to do it, and not listen to the voices and the people that live here and have to encounter this problem every single day. You drive by you know, all the trash that's on the side of the road and things like that. So you know, it's been very eye-opening to understand the very deep-rooted issues behind the trash and behind the different types of dumping that's going on. And so again, this is not meant to be a silver bullet as much as I wish it could be. But what I think the unique perspective that it brings is we are leveraging our stormwater requirements through our municipal stormwater permits that are issued by the water board. And this is a state requirement. So this kind of maybe infuses a little bit of a different angle into this that I'm hoping that I'm going to continue to be persistent. And again, we also have other options for keeping the trash out of the waterways. We can install devices. We can, you know, do what we can with Recology, but this is kind of a start that we wanted to see if this is a creative solution to a very complex problem.
I have a silly question. Well, we do have a business on Main Street, and I didn't know about the stickers.
Oh no, which one? Which business?
The gallery on the corner, Ollie Gallery.
Okay, I'm so sorry. We canvassed, so Streets or Creeks is brought on by our brand. We contracted with a branding agency called TIV Branding, and we've canvassed the street back in February. And you know what happened? I think part of the sidewalk might have been closed down for the construction, and there were some businesses we weren't able to reach. But I'm happy to follow up with you if you would like some litter critters in your window or on the sidewalk. Yeah, and we also have stickers too for businesses to hand out, and counter signs. So if someone comes up to the counter like, what's going on with these animals I'm seeing everywhere, there's an informative counter sign that you can also refer people to. So I'm happy to give you all of that. The more the merrier.
I'm curious if you have resources or connections if we wanted to organize more cleanups. I think you mentioned you maybe got your materials from the River Keepers, but I'd love to organize a cleanup through our nonprofit at some point.
You know, the cleanup was a one-man show. That was me on Eventbrite, you know, begging people to sign up, and Recology and the Russian River Watershed Association were really gracious, but we did have some others that came from the community. There was a woman with her 2-month-old child and said, I wanted to do something for Earth Day, but I didn't want to climb around in the creek. So this is a really great opportunity for me. So a light bulb went off in my head, like maybe we can start a club or something. You know, Riverkeeper does such a great job. They have all the tools and resources, but that's, if you, I would be really happy to partner with you on another cleanup. I think that would be really fun and impactful.
We have some instructions on how to do that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the matter. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, you know, I was part of a group that no longer exists called Clean River Alliance that was what is it called? The umbrella group was Russian River Keepers. And one of the things that we did organize was a once a week on Monday, a cleanup in Guerneville. We went up and down Main Street and we picked up pounds and pounds and pounds of a lot of cigarette butts. So, you know,
they're
that
trash.
can be perhaps redone again. One of the great things that Riverkeeper is still doing, I don't know what they call it now, we used to call it the Thursday Project, where people were coordinating with homeless people in encampments to give them bags, and they would put those bags out on a Thursday on River Road and 116, and they would be picked up, and is still continuing today. So that's a really, really important thing. I don't know if you guys wanna be more involved in that. But the other thing that may be gone now that we did was we put up these little signs near the drains to kind of explain, like, don't throw stuff in the drain, it goes to the ocean. If you have something like a barrier, the only issue I might have with that is if it gets filled up, which you could very quickly here since it rains a lot, that it won't be as effective as it might be to prevent stuff from going into the drain. But in any event, I'm excited about this group and I will look at it more, but that, you know, is near and dear to my heart. And I actually I coordinate the Cazadero Highway cleanup, which we're gonna have on June 21st. So anyway, kudos to you for putting this together.
Thank you so much. Yeah, these are all really great ideas.
I was also part of Clean Lip River Alliance and the other thing, and I don't know where it came from, but I know it was county funded. There was a Thursday morning project where a coordinator had a group of homeless people that came from the show, and this was for a couple of years, that did a whole street cleanup and ended up at the pizzeria for a pizza lunch. And were once a month, I believe, given $25 gift cards. So, and that was funded, I believe that was funded by the county through Riverkeeper. But it would be really nice to see that. I mean, that not only did it clean up the streets, it engaged our houseless people in productive activity that made them feel like part of our community and helped to make our other community members appreciate their work. So anyway, I'd love to see that happen again.
I can explain the funding if that's.
Okay,
Sure. So that was, my first year in office, you know, we were really at a crisis, a boiling point with respect to homelessness in Guerneville. And so I was able to get $1 million of general fund discretionary dollars through the budget hearings, which we then actually hired a facilitator and worked with community members and service providers to come up for a recommendation for how to allocate it. And that was one of the programs that was funded. Unfortunately, as Ty well knows, pretty much all homelessness funding comes with lots of strings attached and is really focused on kind of housing first initiatives at this point in time. And so programs like that, while they have huge value, I think both to the community as well as the you know, unsheltered folks who are participating in it, unfortunately, are very difficult to fund, and you'd have to find general fund dollars to do something like that. But that it was actually started by Clean River Alliance, as you know, and Chris Brocate, and then he got a little bit of technical support from the Marin Downtown Streets team, I think is what they call it. And so they still have a pretty well established program down there that they've tried to spread around the Bay Area. But I would love to bring something like that back. The trick is, how do we fund it? Because that was awesome, and I think that it also created a spirit of community cohesion
Absolutely.
among the participants. And then there was gratitude from the community, so it was kind of mutually reinforcing to be
Yeah.
like establishing a positive relationship
Exactly.
between the unsheltered and the housed members of the community.
Well, if I can just say one thing, maybe it's obvious, the educational stuff that you guys are doing and the way you're doing it, I think is awesome. Having, being on Main Street quite a bit here in Guerneville itself, we have one of those, rainbow trash receptacles in front of the business. It's always full, right? So we don't have enough places for people to put trash, even if they're educated, they shouldn't. And then we don't have a mechanism to get those receptacles moved. I mean, if we can solve the education problem all we want, but if we don't have somewhere to put trash and we don't have someone to pick it up or somewhere to put it, we're back to square one again.
Yeah.
One other thing, not leaning for a solution. But I'm in a road where people regularly dump their household stuff.
Oh.
And it
Maybe they
happens.
just don't like you.
My house.
Oh, okay, all right.
But I know I'm not alone in that. I know that happens all over the county. And so it's just something else to be aware of. It's not just cigarette butts and candy wrappers.
Yeah, right.
It's-
Line bags, bags of diapers and
Yeah.
kitchen trash.
All right, Vesta,
I know.
you're up.
I know. Why don't we show up at these meetings?
We're glad.
I was part of Clean River Alliance from the beginning of that, and I do river cleanup, river keeper cleanups on the roads all the time. One of the things that we did, when we had a cleanup committee on the MAC, when I was on the MAC, is we came through Guerneville and cleaned up the streets, and cigarette butts were definitely one of the biggest things that happens even in Forestville. The concept of the grates to be able to catch something as small as a cigarette butt, the biggest problem with that was cleaning the grates. So we would find the grates completely clogged up, and then the water is simply going back out on the streets again. So just like cleaning the trash cans more frequently, that was always an issue here as well. Is there a way to clean the grates more frequently so they actually function during the rainy season?
Yeah.
There's a lot of trash that gets caught in them as it is, but if they have a smaller grate on them, and that sounds like what you're going to be establishing, it would need to have a program that increases the frequency of cleaning those grates. Thank you.
Yes, and I can speak a little bit more to the structural BMPs. Is something that I'm coordinating, working actively with Sonoma Public Infrastructure, SPI. We actually have grant funding, but it's down in Petaluma to start testing out the different types of small trash capture devices. And you brought up a really great point about the maintenance. They have a maintenance schedule. They need to be checked regularly because they do pose a flooding risk when in high rain events. And as we are moving into a new normal of atmospheric rivers and bomb cyclones, it's definitely something that we are very afraid. Our SBI is very nervous about putting in all of our storm drains. So the education outreach component to our trash implementation plan for the county, as well as hopefully, coming down the pipe, eventually some policies, some ordinances that we'll need to explore. There's definitely a structural component as well that we're actively piloting, but it's just down in a different region. But similar to this study, we are going to get those devices in the drains, watch them, and really learn about what their maintenance requirements will be, as well as what their installation is like, what the cost is like to maintain. Those are all learnings that thankfully the co-permittees down in the Bay Area, the phase ones down there, have already started to install and learn from. So we're not going to be forging a new path here, but in terms of Sonoma County and what these structural devices will have as a burden on our budget and our SBI's resources, those are all things that we're actively exploring.
Anyone else in the room? Yeah.
Hi, Alyssa. Thank you for your presentation. I really like what you're doing. I think that human behavior is very important and intractable. But that said, I have grown up always hearing, always reading on the storm drains in the city, drains to bay, you know, don't litter, and knowing that if I threw trash on the street, it was going to end up in a river, an ocean, a bay, and be harmful for the environment. And so the cynical part of me kind of wonders if societally we've reached a point of diminishing returns on attacking the human behavior. And so I would encourage you to, and I know this is a pilot project and you can't save the world in one day and everything, but I think that the problem really is the trash itself, is the fact that we're producing and selling plastic and cigarette butts and all this stuff that really, no matter how it's disposed of, no matter how it's used, it's an ecological catastrophe. And so I would encourage you in the next phase of this project to start talking to the businesses that are selling those products and start looking at ways to change packaging. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a really great point. And that is definitely something in our co-permitting work group that we have really honed in on. Behaviors of littering from every stage of just consumption all the way to disposal, where what behavior are we trying to influence here with this campaign? And so we started off by focusing on littering itself. Just don't throw your trash on the street. But in our learnings and through just the preliminary stages of this campaign, we're really, like you said, really starting to think maybe we need to pay attention to the sources of litter and encouraging people to refuse to use their reusable utensils and cups and things like that. So I'm glad you brought that point up. It's definitely something that's top of mind for us.
Anyone online, Tracy?
I don't see any hands raised.
All right. Thank you, Alyssa, so much. Well, we really do appreciate what you're doing.
It's epic.
Thank you.
So-
I love it. Thank you. Please keep in touch. Hi,
And I want
everybody.
a sticker.
I will bring one to you. I promise. Take care.
All right.
Good the otter.
What?
Good the
Otter?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to 10. This is quick, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ad hoc committee report on community engagement. The first ad hoc didn't
No,
meet yet.
We tried, but we're gonna have a little more time to put it together. I think that was the issue. With all the scheduling, it just wasn't gonna happen. So we've been in touch with the analyst and she's trying to help us figure it out.
So did we set a time on the ad hoc that expired? Did that?
No, it's approximately 2 months, and I think that will be fine, but
Okay.
and it will be one meeting.
Yeah.
And that will happen before the July MAC meeting.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
All right, great.
And then I was also asked to just give a little bit of an overview of the district formation process and what this year-long contract with RSG consultants is, because right now this ad hoc is about task 1, and there's 6 tasks in this. So task 1 is the project initiation and community engagement. That's where we are now. And the ad hoc will meet with the county staff and RSG consultants before the next meeting to assist in shaping the community outreach and engagement session. So it's not that ad hoc is making any decisions. They're just helping to explain to these folks how to best communicate with our communities. And then a community engagement session will take place in the late summer or fall. And then task 2 is briefing community representatives, discussing implications and next steps. 3 is initial scoping of supplemental service models and levels for consideration. Task 4 is community education and screening. Task 5 is initial district feasibility analysis, and then task 6 will be a final report. So, this will come back in different shapes and forms, but there were people that were just interested in that whole process. And the consultant's contract can be found, I can provide it to anybody who wants it. It was approved by the Board of Supervisors back in March, so it's on a board agenda.
Great, thank
Thanks for
you.
that.
Any comments from anyone on the council? Anyone in the room? Anyone online? Oh.
I just have a general question. So are we talking about forming a new district?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that's what it's called. So it threw me off.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Anyone online? Tracy?
No hands online.
All right, let's move on to 11. Community engagement discussion. I know we have some events coming up, but we want to talk about some other possibilities.
There were some logistics around Rio Fest and who's going to be there and when. We could take that offline right now. I think we have, Lonnie finishing it up, right? You're gonna be there at the end and you're open and flexible.
I'm open for it.
Okay, and Patty is the other person that's committed, but
I
we
also
could,
volunteered for that.
okay. Do you have time? Do you have time constraints?
No, it's a Saturday,
I
right?
think we
Yeah.
should do specific event planning offline. I don't think we should
Yeah.
keep
Yeah,
public
we
in
should
this
just
whole
talk,
matter
yeah.
here for
Yeah.
things like that.
I agree.
Okay, so I'll follow up with the three of you. And is there anybody else I should follow up with? Cause I send
Yeah.
emails out and sometimes I just get crickets.
I think I'm gonna be able to do it.
You will,
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Any comments on that? Public? Anyone here online? Guess what?
Diane and I have figured out how.